Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
If it's happening in professional wrestling, we're breaking it down. The matches, the moments, the rumors, and yes, even the hot takes. This is Pro Wrestling Focus. No nonsense, no wasted motion, just pure wrestling talk. Now, here's your host, Cody Springer.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Focus. WrestleMania 41 might be in the rear view, but the fallout has been heating up. Now, I'm going to talk about the Raw after WrestleMania because it was noteworthy, to say the least. Man, I'm going to talk about, the Bron Breakker aligning himself with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. The reigniting of the most historic rivalries in WWE history with John Cena and Randy Orton. Rusev made his return on Raw. I was talking about a couple weeks ago that he re-signed with a company and now he's back. And, the shocking angle of Gunther choking out Pat McAfee. That is definitely going to be something to talk about for sure. And then I want to get into the latest news here. I got news on Tama Tonga, some injury news on him, and then we're going to talk about Bayley possibly leaving WWE here in the next year and a half. So, yeah, we got quite a bit to talk about on this episode of Pro Wrestling Focus. All right, let's start with the Raw after WrestleMania. I want to talk about what happened at the end of the show first. I'm going to talk about Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. As you guys know, at WrestleMania, Seth Rollins defeated CM Punk and Roman Reigns with the help of Paul Heyman, and Rollins has become the newest Paul Heyman guy. And before Rollins could cut a promo about WrestleMania, CM Punk came out. They started going at it. Punk was trying to get his hands on Paul Heyman to get revenge, but in the end, Rollins got the better end of the deal on Punk, got the upper hand, hit him with a stomp, and then Roman Reigns comes out. Roman Reigns comes out. And, he, took out Rollins, but then he hit a Superman punch on Paul Heyman. And before he could spear Heyman, Bron Breakker comes out of nowhere and spears Roman Reigns. And then Bron Breakker speared Roman Reigns into the barricade, taking him out. So yeah, Bron Breakker, Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman are a faction now. Man, this is awesome for Breakker. It really is, because now Bron Breakker, he's taking that step out of the mid-card, and now he's mixing it up with some of the biggest stars in the company, because I'm telling you, one day Bron Breakker is going to be a future WWE or World Heavyweight Champion. WWE has been positioning Bron Breakker for a long time now to become a main event star, and now they're moving him into that slot. And I think this is the perfect way to do it. He aligns himself with Rollins, who's already a main event level star, and Paul Heyman. Because Paul Heyman only runs with the big stars. And Heyman's track record speaks for itself. Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, Roman Reigns. Heyman only runs with the top guys of the company, and, his success has proven that, that if he puts your name behind you, then you're going to be successful. It's as simple as that. So, I think this is perfect. I think this is going to catapult Bron Breakker to the next level. And I think, this is going to be nothing but good things for him in the future. And then, if Breakker and Rollins, they continue to dominate as a faction, it could potentially set up a potential breakdown in the future where Bron Breakker ends up feuding with Seth Rollins. Maybe they turn on each other down the line. There's just so many possibilities. But given what happened on Raw in that angle at the end of the show, I think this pretty much is going to set the stage for a tag team match at Backlash, where Bron Breakker is going to team up with Seth Rollins against the unwilling alliance of Roman Reigns and CM Punk. It's going to be one of those things where, Roman and Punk, they don't like each other, but they have a common enemy or common enemies. That being Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins. I think, it's going to come to a point where Roman and Punk are going to be like, look, I don't like you, you don't like me, but we both got screwed by the same guy. A guy that we trusted and loved, and he sided with our mortal enemy and Seth Rollins. So either we can work together to stop them, or they're just going to keep, beating our asses week in and week out. So I think it's going to come to a point where Roman and Punk are going to have to put their differences aside and work together to go up against Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker. So, I think it's going to set up the next few weeks of TV, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens. And I like this. I think this is a good angle to run. It keeps Rollins, Roman, and Punk all working together with Heyman, and then you add Bron Breakker into the mix, and then he's going to get the rub from that, and it's going to help get him more over in the eyes of the audience. So this is definitely a W move storyline wise. Let's just hope that WWE can continue the momentum. All right, up next, John Cena. We're going to talk about John Cena, the new undisputed WWE champion. As we know, he beat Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania. And, a lot of mixed emotions about that, how that all went down in the ending of that match. And I'm going to get more into that in a separate podcast where I talk about The Rock. But I'm not going to talk about that right now, but we're going to talk about John Cena's promo here. Cena cut a cold and calculated promo. He said he has 27 dates left before retirement. and that he plans on retiring as the champion, and that he is going to stop the pro wrestling timeline dead in its tracks when he leaves WWE as champion. You know, that's what Cena's whole thing is. He's going to ruin wrestling as we know it and retire as the last real champion. And that's what Cena's been talking about for weeks, you know, that he is the last real champion in, you know, that's around. And then he's going to be gone in 27 appearances from now. And Cena said, you know, there are appearances, not matches. You know, Cena says he doesn't have to wrestle, but I think he's going to have to because, you know, during this promo, Randy Orton snuck up behind Cena and delivered an RKO to Cena. So, yeah, the old rivalry has been reunited. Randy Orton and John Cena. You know, these two have had numerous matches throughout their careers. You know, their careers have been pretty much intertwined for the longest time. You know, John Cena and Randy Orton, you know, they were both looked at one point in time as the two top stars in the company. You know, and they're both still around. You know, Cena, yeah, he's on the way out. Randy Orton plans to wrestle at least a couple more years. You know, I mean, I think he said he wants to go another 5 years, you know, sign another 5-year contract, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But it looks like, you know, that Randy Orton and John Cena is going to be the direction for Backlash. They're going to have one last war before John Cena hangs up the boots for good. Or in this case, the sneakers for good. But yeah, I liked it. You know, Cena pretty much reveling in his championship win. You know, Cena pretty much telling the fans, you know, screw you. You know, I'm going to retire with this belt, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And then Randy Orton, you know, definitely had something to say about it. So, yeah, because, you know, Randy Orton, you know, a couple weeks ago on SmackDown told Cody Rhodes when he was still the champion that he was coming for that title after WrestleMania. So, but Orton had to, you know, change from having a possible match with Cody to having a possible match with John Cena since Cena is still the champion. You know, because I think it's going to be a little while before we see Cody Rhodes back on WWE programming. You know, I think he's going to take some time off now. And, you know, maybe Cody comes back or sometime in the summertime. But, yeah, so from the time being, I think Cena's going to work with other guys. And looks like Randy Orton's going to be the first one that Cena's going to work with. So, yeah, I expect there will be a title match between John Cena and Randy Orton for Backlash. And, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see how they follow this up in the weeks leading up to Backlash.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
All right, let's talk about Rusev. You know, Rusev made his big return to WWE. And, I talked about the news a couple weeks ago that Rusev has re-signed with WWE. He's back in the fold now after leaving AEW. And, Rusev looked good. He definitely looked good. We had an impromptu tag team match with the New Day and Alpha Academy, or the Alpha Babes, or whatever the hell they're calling themselves now, Otis and Akira Tozawa. And before the match could even get underway, Rusev, his music hit, his new music, and he returned. And the New Day, they escaped, but Rusev destroyed Otis and Akira Tozawa to make a statement that he's back. And, I think this is going to be a serious, dominant Rusev. I don't think we're going to get the Rusev Day stuff, even though the crowd is probably going to want to try to, chant Rusev Day and all that. But no, I think they're going to take a serious direction with Rusev. Now, I'm not sure what the direction is here. Is he going to feud with the New Day? Kofi and Woods? Well, if that's the case, then he needs to have a tag team partner, because what I would not be okay with is if he feuds with Kofi and Woods and it's not about the tag team titles. I would hate for the tag team titles to take a back seat to, this feud. So if Rusev is going to feud with the New Day, fine, but he needs to find a tag team partner and go after the tag team titles. If that's the direction that we're headed into. I mean, they could bring back Aiden English, and have Rusev and in English, go up against the New Day. That's entirely possible, but I don't think Aiden English is somebody that's on their radar right now. I don't think he is. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with Rusev and if he's going to feud with the New Day, or if he's going to just, do this thing where he comes out and he starts wrecking guys left and right. I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see what they do with him. But Rusev looked like a badass. He looked like somebody to be reckoned with. And, I'm glad that that's the direction they're heading into. All right, let's talk about Iyo Sky here. Iyo Sky had a very interesting challenger on Raw, and it was the NXT Women's Champion, Stephanie Vaquer. She came out and she challenged Iyo Sky to a match. And Iyo was just coming off that amazing triple threat match where she defended her title against Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. So, Iyo was like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. So we had Stephanie Vaquer against Iyo Sky, the NXT Women's Champion against the WWE Women's World Champion. And, yeah, we had a pretty good in-ring action until Roxanne Perez came out and she caused the disqualification. She attacked Iyo Sky, and then Julia came out, got into the arena as well, and attacked Stephanie Vaquer. And if you recall, Stephanie Vaquer took the NXT Women's Championship from Julia several weeks ago. And Roxanne Perez, she's just been kind of floating around. She's kind of mostly been doing stuff in NXT, but she's also had a couple matches here on the main roster. She's supposed to be a main roster call-up, but for whatever reason, she's just been kind of floating around. I don't know what's going on there. But anyways, so, Roxanne, she's attacking Iyo. Julia's attacking Stephanie. And then Rhea Ripley, her music hits, and she makes the save here. And she gets rid of Roxanne and Julia. And then Rhea turns her attention to Iyo Sky. And she told Iyo that she is still coming for her title. So Rhea Ripley is not done with Iyo Sky quite yet. So I'm expecting here that at Backlash, we're going to get Rhea versus Iyo one-on-one once again for the championship. But where does Roxanne, Julia, and Stephanie Vaquer fit into this? Was this just simply just crossover for NXT, to get more eyes on Stephanie? Because I think Stephanie and Roxanne had a match this past Tuesday on NXT. So they might have been trying to get some extra promotion for that match by having, them on Raw. So, I don't know. I think we're going to have to see what happens here. If the NXT women get more involved into this. But it's definitely an interesting situation to keep an eye on. But I would definitely expect that Rhea and Iyo Sky are going to have a match at Backlash for the championship.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, let's talk about Gunther here, because Gunther, this would happen directly after Jey Uso celebrated with Sami Zayn, who's now back, and Jimmy Uso. Gunther confronts Pat McAfee and Michael Cole, and more specifically Cole. He confronted Michael Cole, and things were escalating. And then Cole got up and told Gunther, look, I'm just trying to do my job, and, no offense, but I'm not the one who tapped out at WrestleMania. And that pissed Gunther off. Gunther knocked Cole's headset and glasses off of his face and head. And then he shoves McAfee, and then he grabs a hold of Cole and tries to put him in the sleeper hold. And then McAfee gets up, and then he punches Gunther to, so that way Gunther lets go of Cole. And now Gunther's pissed at McAfee for intervening. And then we get officials and security and referees coming down. Adam Pearce is coming down too. And then, McAfee's basically telling Gunther, dude, you need to chill the hell out, I don't know what you think you're doing. You're putting your hands on Michael Cole. This is that. You need to chill the hell out. And then McAfee turns his back to Gunther, and then Gunther gets a hold of Pat McAfee and puts him in the sleeper hold. And then all of a sudden, Pat McAfee's boys, from the Pat McAfee show, they jump the barricade and they're trying to get to Pat. They're trying to get to Gunther and everything, and they're being held back and everything. And then Gunther chokes out McAfee. Yeah, so, and then they finally get Gunther to let go of McAfee. And, yeah, so like that. I was not expecting that. That was some interesting developments right there, and then so Gunther gets escorted to the back, and then Cole and various other people are trying to help McAfee to the back, and McAfee's choking and stuff. He's selling the attack from Gunther, and then it came out just today. Adam Pearce went on social media and he announced that Gunther has been suspended indefinitely. Now, this is just storyline suspension, of course, but yeah, Gunther has been suspended indefinitely for what he did to Pat McAfee and Michael Cole. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think this is going to be kind of like the lawn play here, but I think at SummerSlam, we're going to get a Gunther versus Pat McAfee match at SummerSlam. Yes, I think this is what we're going to build to. I think Gunther's taking some time off, and I think when he comes back, he'll be coming back in the build to SummerSlam, and it's going to be him versus Pat McAfee. I think what the angle they did on Raw, I think it's going to set up a Pat McAfee versus Gunther match for SummerSlam. And it's been a while since Pat's been in the ring. I think his last match was at WrestleMania 39, I think it was. When he was like a surprise opponent for The Miz, I think it was. Unless I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But yeah, McAfee, it's been a while since he's been in the ring. And yeah, so I think, they're going to build towards a McAfee versus Gunther match at SummerSlam. So if you notice Pat's been, getting in the gym and training and everything like that, then it's just probably for that reason. That he's going to go up against Gunther at SummerSlam. But yeah, and then Cole, Adam Pearce tried to give Michael Cole the rest of the night off. They sent Joe Tessitore down there to fill in for Cole and McAfee. And then Cole said, I'm not going to let some, bully, stop me from doing my job. So Cole went back down to commentary, and then he finished out the rest of the show on commentary. But yeah, man, this was a crazy angle. I definitely did not expect this to happen, but I like it, and I think it's going to build towards a McAfee and Gunther match in the summer.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
All right, up next here, we have Becky Lynch making a shocking heel turn here on Lyra Valkyria. Yeah, that's what happened because just 24 hours before Raw at WrestleMania, Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria defeated Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez to become the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Becky made her surprise return at WrestleMania. It was supposed to be Bayley and Lyra against Liv and Raquel, but they ran an angle the night on WrestleMania night 1 where Bayley was attacked mysteriously and she was not medically cleared to compete, so therefore Lyra had to find a replacement partner, and Becky Lynch stepped up. So then we get the rematch on Raw, and Becky and Lyra lose. So just 24 hours after winning the titles, they lose them back to Liv and Raquel. And then after the match, Becky snaps and attacks Lyra. Yeah, she definitely, she gave Lyra a beating, gave her like 3 manhandle slams. And wow. First of all, I wasn't expecting Becky to return at WrestleMania, number 1. And number 2, that, her and Lyra win the titles. And number 3, they lose the titles and then she turns heel. Like, wow. So that's a lot of shit there in just a 24-hour period with Becky Lynch. But at the same time, I think this is going to set up a really intriguing match for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And I think this could happen at Backlash, because I think this is where this is all heading towards. Becky's going to be like, I've never held that championship before. Talking about the Women's Intercontinental title. So I think Becky and Lyra will have a match for the title, and I would not mind if they stretch this out to, several months, have a 2 to 3 month program of the title. And I think the matches would be great between these two because, if you remember the matches they had in NXT, then yeah, like these two can work and, they have great chemistry in the ring. And yeah, I think it's going to make for some really good months of TV, depending on how long they keep this feud going. This could be a 1 month, 1 month program. One and done. Becky wins the title, or they could stretch it out, to couple PLEs and make the most out of it. But we're just gonna have to see. We'll have to see what Becky's heel persona is going to be as well, because, we remember the big time Beck's heel persona. I don't know if Becky's going to, go pivot towards that or if it's going to be a totally different heel persona than we've seen, than what we've seen in the past. But I'm into it and looking forward to see what happens next.
It's time to dive into the latest news and rumors from around the pro wrestling industry. Some of it's fact, some of it's speculation, but we'll break it all down and separate what's real from what's just making headlines. Remember, if it's not confirmed, it's just a rumor. But that won't stop us from talking about it.
All right, let's get into the latest news here. There was some big news coming out of WrestleMania weekend about WWE acquiring AAA. Yes, the Mexican promotion AAA is now owned by WWE. And to be honest, this is big news, because AAA is the biggest promotion in Mexico. And we've had, quite a few talent come out of AAA. Such as Penta and, Ray Phoenix, I believe, was in AAA. And, there's quite a few talent that's come in and out of AAA. But now they're a part of WWE. And there's been some talk about AAA possibly being rebranded as NXT Mexico. I think this is big for WWE for them to acquire AAA. And I remember several years ago, Triple H was making this presentation about how he was going to have NXTs set up all throughout the world. So basically there'd be like an NXT, United States where, that's the home NXT. It'd be in Florida. And then there'd be an NXT in Mexico. And there'd be one in the UK. In Australia, like basically all around the world. Now, they had NXT UK, but they shut it down, and they're going to rebrand it as NXT Europe. So you would have, you would have the United Kingdom talent. You would have talent from Scotland, from Germany, from basically all around Europe come into NXT Europe, and that's still going to happen, but it's been delayed. It's taken longer than expected. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely coming. Is that in the future they're going to have NXTs all around the United States, and talent can be sent from one NXT to the next. Like, okay, we have talent down here in NXT Mexico. These three guys are ready to be in the main NXT, so we're going to send them to the United States. We're going to get them set up with visas and all that, so that way they can be in the United States and work in NXT in the United States. So I definitely think that is the plan. And people said years ago, like, oh, this is Triple H's plan for global domination. That he's gonna poach all the talent from the indies and everything. And even if Triple H wanted to do that, you can't, because there's always going to be independent promotions. There's always going to be independent promotions, in my opinion. Because even though TNA and AEW are well-known promotions and stuff, I consider them to kind of still be independents, in all honesty. Now, even though AEW is on TV, on national TV and everything like that, they're nowhere near the level of a WWE, and it never will be. So basically, in my opinion, I think the WWE is the be-all, end-all of where you want to be as a wrestler. Whether you're in Mexico, whether you're in Austria or Australia, Germany, France, Italy, it doesn't matter where you come from. The WWE should always be where you want to end up as a wrestler. So yeah, you want to work indies, you want to go to wrestling school, you want to, take up all the opportunities that you can. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get there. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, but you always want to end up eventually going to WWE. That should be the be-all, end-all for you as a wrestler. And I do think that now that WWE is now going to, own AAA and possibly rebrand it under NXT Mexico, I think it's going to be a lot easier for Mexican talent to come in and try to make a name for themselves in WWE. Let's talk about Tama Tonga. Yeah, per sources at bodyslam.net, Tama Tonga will be sidelined for months due to an injury that will require surgery. And the angle that was ran on SmackDown last week with LA Knight appears to have been his write-off from the storylines. I mean, it sucks for Tama Tonga, for sure. And I'm not even sure how he got injured, but that's not clear right now. But yeah, Tama Tonga will be out of action for several months due to an injury. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to affect anything really, because he was just being a lackey for Solo and Jacob Fatu. So I don't think it's going to affect all that much as far as their storyline goes. But I think, with Tama being out of the way, you can focus strictly on Solo and Jacob, because I do think they're going to have a feud coming up here soon over the United States Championship. As far as Tama Tonga goes, I think when he comes back, he'll probably, either be with Solo or maybe he even feuds with Jacob. I'd be all for that, because I think it'd be a great match between the two of them. But yeah, so it'll be a while before we see Tama Tonga doing the gig. Oh man, it cracks me up when he does that. But yeah, it'll be a while before we, see him do that. But hopefully when he comes back, it'll lead to bigger and better opportunities for him, rather than just being a lackey for Solo and Jacob. All right, and we got to talk about Bayley here. She had an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and Bayley was kind of hinting that her time with WWE might be winding down. She has 18 months left on her current contract, and she has felt like she's mostly accomplished everything that she set out to do in the WWE. But we're going to listen to the clip from the interview, and then after that, we'll discuss it.
Obviously, it ain't that easy, but, that's how I would think about it. Yeah, so that's like my end all, and I have like a whole, idea behind it. It's not just wrestling school. Like I have so many other things I want to, make it into. But yeah, I have a year and a half left on this current contract. So we'll see what happens then,
And then what?
And then what? Man, I don't know. Yeah. I think I've done, everything I really want to do. Not everything. There's still a lot I want to get done, but done so much with WWE, and I've been here for already 12 years, and there's like a huge wave of women coming in that I think are ready to take over and like ready to be in those spots. Like teaming with Lyra right now has been super eye-opening to like what the whole division has to offer. I've got to work with Roxanne, I got to work with Cora, but even like last night hanging out with Lyra, hearing like we went out to dinner and we hung out with Meechin for her birthday, but like being able to hang out with her outside of wrestling and hearing her mindset and why she does this and why she wants to make it better and what she wants to make better and how she wants to help even me, like things that we're doing going into WrestleMania, how she wants to be better for me is like, just like makes me so happy that there's people like that and women like that want to be better for the division, So when I think about like, okay, I might be done in a couple of years or what, who knows? I know that it's going to be in good hands. So that makes me really happy. Where like before it might have, like John Cena always says, he couldn't leave because who was going to do what he does, know? Who's going to take his place? Who's going to like be the one to freaking put asses in seats? Who's going to be the one that the kids want to see, that the kids idolize, like to the level that he does? And like Cody's doing that, you know? So like, I feel like
it took Cody coming back.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm John Cena, of course, but I'm just saying
female
like,
John Cena, right?
Yeah.
You've heard that.
Yeah. A long time ago. But I'm just saying like, that's kind of the,
oh my gosh. Hope everyone's okay.
All right, that was Bayley talking to Chris Van Vliet about her future in the WWE. And, Bayley, it looks like she might not necessarily be all that happy right now with WWE. Because, she was supposed to be in this big tag team match at WrestleMania with Lyra Valkyria going up against Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. And then they run an angle where she is taken out of the match and she's replaced by Becky Lynch. And I feel like she probably was upset about being replaced at WrestleMania. And to be honest, she's got every right to be upset and pissed off about the situation. Because if I'm Bayley, I'm probably thinking in my head, I'm like, well, I've been working my ass off all year long, and Becky, she's been gone for almost a year now, and then she gets to come in and take my spot on the biggest stage of them all. Like, she probably feels robbed of competing at WrestleMania. And that... Yeah, that sucks for her, man, because she was in such a big spot the year before. She competed against Iyo Sky for the Women's Championship at WrestleMania last year, and she won the Royal Rumble. She had a big year. She really did. And then things have just gone downhill, and then she missed WrestleMania entirely this year. So... she's probably just kind of just thinking in her head, like, man, dude, is my time coming to an end here? I got about 1.5 years left on my deal, and I kind of have other stuff I want to do. She talked about possibly opening up a wrestling school. That's something that she wants to do. And, yeah, she's just not sure what her future is going to look like after her contract is up. So... yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that Triple H is going to make it up to her. I really hope he's going to, because that is such shit, in my opinion, that she got taken out of her spot. Now, don't get me wrong. Becky coming back, so unexpectedly, that was cool. I like that. But I thought the way they did it, though, it wasn't fair to Bayley at all. So I'm hoping that Triple H will make it up to her in some way. Giving her a big match on some PLE, maybe another title run. Hopefully. I don't know. But yeah, I would not blame her if she left, to be honest. Because... and that's the thing, they even asked Triple H in the press conference after WrestleMania about Bayley and her future, and Triple H said that Bayley's just going to be just fine, that she's a true pro. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully Triple H is planning to make this up to her somehow. I don't know. But, yeah, hopefully, they can work things out and Bayley stays with the company. Because I would hate to see her go to AEW, or, I just think, she deserves to be on the roster. She's earned her spot on the roster, and that she needs to still be treated as a top name in the company. That's going to do it for today's episode of Pro Wrestling Focus. We're heading into the build for Backlash, so the landscape completely reshaped. Bron Breakker aligned himself with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins. John Cena is on a mission to not only retire as champion, but to ruin wrestling. And Randy Orton clearly has something to say about that. And the women's division is heating up. And then Gunther has been indefinitely suspended for his actions against Pat McAfee and Michael Cole. But I want to hear from you. What do you make of the Raw after WrestleMania? What do you think of the ongoing storylines? Are you here for John Cena's heel championship run? Is Becky Lynch the top heel in the women's division right now? Well, let me know what you think. And as always, thank you for tuning in. And be sure to follow the podcast on wherever you get your podcast. And we'll be talking soon. And stay focused.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.